Crawlers.
What's up, guys? This is Jared Seaich with Dungeon Crawlers. We're going to jump back on the Star Wars Rebel train and get a little bit excited for what this new season has to come. But first, we're going to give a little review of last season and go over some of the memorable moments that really shocked us during the Star Wars Rebels Season 2.
I'm not afraid.
That's what worries me.
So much like the original trilogy, Rebels has been following a formula that really pits your antagonist and your protagonist against each other in pivotal moments, such as A New Hope being the beginning of the journey, such as in Season 1, and then Season 2 gets a much darker. And the season starts out pretty dark. Darth Vader was just introduced into the picture. They understand the power that this man holds, and he single-handedly, I remember this in the second season, single-handedly takes on a rebel fleet by himself, and all these pilots are like, what is going on? This is just one guy. And Ahsoka is feeling his presence and understanding that there is something deeper that she's feeling that could indicate that Anakin survived somehow and that he didn't die during Order 66.
He's amazing.
You should have seen him in person. He was my master.
She explains that the last time she saw him, he was going after Palpatine to save him, and then she never saw him again. This is the first time that we've seen a lead up to Ahsoka versus Vader, which was fantastic, by the way, but we'll get to that. So Vader versus the Rebel fleet, his presence in the entire second season was just so amazing. Voiced by James Earl Jones, the original Darth Vader in 1977, A New Hope. And I just think it all fit together so beautifully. The storytelling really feels like Star Wars. Some people had some complaints about The Force Awakens, that it was a rehash of A New Hope. It didn't quite feel like Star Wars. And I agree with them a little bit. I still feel like it was an incredible film, but there is something about Rebels that really brings out the aspects of storytelling that really fit into the timeline of A New Hope, and it's just all very nostalgic. Next, we had a couple of new Inquisitors that were introduced in this season. Freddie Prinze Jr., who voices Kanan in the show, is married to Sarah Michelle Gellar, and we all know that they've been an awesome celebrity couple for a long time. Well, they brought her into the show to play, I think it was the second Inquisitor. They had kind of a pirate-looking guy and this really sleek, cool-looking woman, and she had a pretty cool role in the entire season. I think that she brought a really cool icy presence to the Inquisitors, and it was just, I think, a really cool thing to see them working together on the show again. And her influence on Ezra a little bit was, in my opinion, kind of the first stepping stone of maybe him giving in a little bit to Darth Maul a little bit later in the season, but we'll get to that. One of my favorite episodes, I think, in this show had to have been when we find Rex for the first time. Now, just knowing that he was alive, knowing that he survived after the Clone Wars, which, guys, if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, please go watch it before you watch this, because there's so much that connect to it, and it just makes the whole watching experience a lot better. But Rex was one of my favorite characters in the Clone Wars, and they were able to get him to come back into Rebels by introducing him to the Rebels with, he has this band of clone troopers that had survived afterwards. They're living on this like desert salt planet, kind of like the Salt Flats where we shot Knights of the Republic Broken Souls. And it's really funny to see how crazy they've kind of gotten as they've aged, but they're still like really badass. Like they still can hold their own in a firefight.
I'm working on it! Come out and fight, you cowards!
One of the coolest parts of that episode to me was when the AT-AT started coming after the Clone Wars Walker, and for the first time it was like seeing the original trilogy pitted against the prequels. And the prequels, to me at least, are still very good Star Wars movies. Not as good as the original trilogy, but I'm not one of those haters that's going to say, oh, it was complete garbage. So for me, it was very cool to see these two eras of Star Wars for the first time kind of mixed together, and drawing a line that connects the dots from each era of the two trilogies. Another really cool character that they reintroduced from the Clone Wars was Ahsoka Tano. If you've seen the Clone Wars, again, amazing, but Ahsoka, to me, was a character that became a fan favorite almost instantly. I didn't think it would, because I almost felt like her character was forced on us when Clone Wars first began, but she grew into such an important part of Anakin and his turn to the dark side eventually, and is a very pivotal character to the progression to Darth Vader becoming who he is. She is easily probably one of my favorite characters in either shows, and they bring her into this show as a gray Jedi, 2 white lightsabers, very, very cool. And I think that what they're doing is Dave Filoni didn't have an opportunity to close the door on a lot of different storylines and characters from the Clone Wars, and he's doing an excellent job at doing that in Rebels. And I think the biggest one that everyone's been waiting for is this Ahsoka versus Anakin epic showdown. And they began at the beginning of the season developing her character kind of in a fresh light with the Star Wars Rebels. And she's grown into a very independent and strong gray Jedi. And I think her decision to join the Rebels was very interesting because she could have, back in the Clone Wars, her allegiances were kind of broken. I guess spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, so hold on. Ahsoka eventually gets booted out of the Jedi Academy, and she feels betrayed and doesn't come back when she's offered to. And it's really interesting to see her find a cause that helps her break down that wall a little bit and join something bigger than herself after so long. And she fits so well with the crew, with Ezra, Kanan, Hera, all those guys. And it's really cool to see her out on these kind of rogue missions, performing as another Jedi and just bringing another element of the Force to Ezra that he hasn't quite seen with Kanan, because Kanan is very inexperienced and wasn't really ready to be a Jedi Knight or even have his own Padawan. So I think her presence was very pivotal in the development of Ezra Bridger. Another kind of cool thing that pointed out, or that struck out to me, was when Leia finally makes her way onto the show. Number one, it's really cool to see Leia, and they did a really good job of bringing her spunkiness back to the show and bringing her presence back that we all know and love. And the thing that I was really enticed about this is that in tow, she brings along 3 Old Republic cruisers. And up until now, we all thought that the Old Republic has been decanonized and there was no hope of it being actual canon again. Well, Rebels is dropping little hints here and there in Rebels to make it canon again. And they've done that with several other characters from the books and such. And it's just really exciting to see those iconic starships in a fleet once again, and have the idea or even the possibility of maybe Revan will be making an appearance at some point in time, or maybe Darth Malak or Bane, who already did in the Clone Wars. This is a really cool part of the Star Wars timeline, and to see Leia bring in those cruisers was just absolutely fantastic. So one of the really cool things that really jumped out to me that I think is the most epic thing between even Clone Wars and Rebels combined was at the end of season 1, and again, there's spoiler alerts, so please, if you haven't seen it, don't look at the reaction first, definitely go experience the show. The end of season 1 of Rebels, the Grand Inquisitor, the really cool guy with the lines in his skin, kind of the same species from Revenge of the Sith, that Inquisitor reappears as what appears to be a temple guard, a Jedi temple guard. They go to that Jedi temple and they're all having these visions. Ahsoka's seeing Anakin as Vader. It's all really, really already very crazy, all the things that they're experiencing. And then all of a sudden, Kanan gets in a fight with these temple guards that are telling him Ezra's going to turn to the dark side, that he's already on this path, they have to kill him. And Kanan comes to the realization that he's afraid and that he's not ready and that he can't control Ezra's destiny, that Ezra is his own person. And at that moment, the temple guard realizes he's passed some kind of test, I guess, and he knights him on the spot. And you're like, what is going on? And then they take off the mask and it's the Inquisitor. I was like, I don't understand, but I'm very excited to see where this is going. Now, we had an opportunity, my wife had an opportunity to meet the actor, Jason Isaacs, I think his name is, that does the voice for the Inquisitor. And he's also one of the Malfoys, Lucius Malfoy from Harry Potter. We got to meet him at Comic-Con, and she asked him, what are your thoughts on coming back to Rebels? And can you give us any kind of drops or hints about what's going to happen? And he said that he was very excited when he got called, that he doesn't know what's going to happen. They didn't give him any more details than what he had recorded. But as far as he knows, he's not going to come back to record anymore. They told him he can take some more work. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he's done with Rebels, if it's just an open-ended plot line. But it was very interesting to see him come back as an Inquisitor, not only saving them, but knighting Kanan. And that shows that he had some kind of authority maybe back a long time ago, or maybe he's been reborn. I don't know. Leave your comments and predictions below. Why is the Inquisitor back as a Jedi Temple Guard? And is he going to serve any purpose maybe in the fourth season or something, or third or fourth season? So this isn't a huge plot point in Rebels, but it kind of tickled me. There's this Imperial droid that's helping the Rebels the entire time, and they're kind of creating a connection, and it's almost kind of cute. And at the very end, Chopper and him interact on the Ghost as they're flying way high in the atmosphere, and I think Chopper gets kind of jealous or something and shoves him off the ship, and you see that poor little astromech droid falling and screaming down in the sky. I could not stop laughing. I was like, that is classic Chopper. Chopper does play a pivotal role in this season too. He aids the Rebels in finding a new base where you find all those spiders in the caves, and he is, to me, kind of on par with like BB-8 and R2-D2. He's just a very lovable character, and he's independent. He's very spunky and moody, and he adds a lot to this crew and brings a new element to Star Wars in a sense. And I think that we're going to see that kind of spunkiness in the new Rogue One film with the droid played by Alan Tudyk. I can't remember the name of the droid, but I love these personalities coming out of the droids, including the Alan Rickman droid that we saw towards the end of the last half of season 2. Very, very cool character. I love the connection that they have. It's very 3PO and R2-D2-esque. It's just really, really nice characters. One of the episodes that my wife really, really, really enjoyed was the episode where Agent Kallus and Zeb are marooned on a moon above Geonosis, and they are forced to work together to survive, and they get to see a perspective pretty much of the enemy. They get to see what life is like and what the protocols are like and the sacrifices are like on each side of the battle, and they develop a respect and an ownership for each other, and it really kind of pulls your tugs at your heartstrings a little bit, because you see them kind of empathizing each other and developing some kind of bond and respect for each other. And to see them work together and create a relationship towards the end of the show that comes back into play in season 3 was just really, really cool. It's a level of character development that we don't quite see in a lot of the movies themselves.
I was only doing my duty. It was nothing personal.
Yeah, what the Empire did on the Sun, I'll never forget it.
We all have things we won't forget.
It shows a lot of who these characters are deep down, because they're making these decisions that are selfless, and even the Imperial characters are making selfless decisions, and it was just a really, really awesome episode. I won't spoil it, but just definitely check it out and let me know what you guys thought of that, and then tell me what you thought of one of these more new recent episodes in season 3 where they kind of circle around to that, because I think that was pretty epic. One really cool part that I really liked was that episode with the new Star Destroyer. I keep forgetting what it's called, but it's the one with the big old gravity wells, and we've seen that a lot in the books and video games, and its main purpose was to stop ships from blasting out into hyperspace and getting away. It was meant to trap them and make sure that they can either destroy them or scrap them. And I love how the hero of the episode, I mean, Ezra was great and Kanan was great, and they were able to get off and all that kind of stuff. But at the very end, when they're getting pulled back into the gravity wells and they're all freaking out, Chopper had designed a trap where they inverted the gravity wells to pull in everything. So all of the Imperial ships are hollering towards the big old Star Destroyer, and it's all blowing up, and it's like carving a big piece of metal out of that thing. It was super epic. And then Chopper was just like, that's what I do. And I was like, that is a badass droid. Now to the most pivotal scene and one of the best season finales I've ever seen in any show. I think it's called Twilight of the Apprentice, the very last episode of season 2. This kind of wraps everything in a very neat package and gives us a lot to want in the new season, which we're seeing some elements already. Darth Maul is probably the biggest part that has been introduced at the end of this last season that everyone's really excited about. So if you recall in the Clone Wars, Darth Maul gets his butt royally handed to him by Palpatine. His brother's killed, and Palpatine tells him, "You're of no use to me. I'm going to let you go and just kind of be, destroyed inside in your own manner." And it was really open-ended, and I was like, I really want to know what happens to Darth Maul. It's never been solidified. And they bring him back at the end of season 2, and it's really cool to see how they developed his character And from this really hateful and naive, and he's just kind of bullheaded and rushes into everything kind of character, into kind of an old hermit style character where he has planned out a series of events that he needs to execute perfectly, and he's become much more thoughtful in his process of taking his revenge. And it's really cool to see Darth Maul come back, see his objective, which it looks like he wants to take on Darth Maul, Darth Vader, but it seems to be a deeper underlying goal for him that maybe we haven't seen yet. We've seen a little bit of it in the beginning of season 3, but it's really cool to see him come back to tempt Ezra with the dark side, and Ezra's totally buying it. They're in Malachor, and they're looking at this big old Jedi temple. There's nostalgia from the Knights of the Republic games. Ezra finds one of those cross lightsabers like what Ezra or Kylo has, and all of a sudden Darth Maul shows up. And I can't believe that I thought for a while that maybe Darth Maul would join the rebels because they have, the enemy of my enemy is my friend's kind of principle. And obviously he betrays them, but everything in between was pretty epic. It seems like he needs them to fight Darth Maul, and he knows that. He fights the Inquisitors and ultimately kills the Inquisitors. There's also a third Inquisitor in there. I don't know if we ever found out who he is, but if you guys know who that is, he's the one that twirls his lightsaber around and almost uses it like a helicopter. It's kind of laughable, but he was pretty cool. His armor was pretty cool. If you guys know who that guy is, comment and let me know down below, because I don't think they ever really told us. But towards the end of the episode, the real crescendo of the whole thing was Darth Vader coming back to this temple. Ezra's trying to get the holocron at the middle with Darth Maul, and Ahsoka is there. And this is a moment that we've been waiting years to see. To see Ahsoka, the once apprentice of Anakin Skywalker, ultimately find out that Anakin had turned to the dark side, had become a monster. She's been worried about this since she felt his presence the first time he attacked the Rebel fleet, and then again during the vision in the Jedi Temple. This was a very emotional episode because we've seen the journey these two characters have taken for several seasons of the Clone Wars, and it was one of the most genuine relationships I think was ever forged in the Star Wars storytelling in any medium. Ahsoka and Anakin really had a deep love for each other. I mean, strictly platonic and brother-sister-like, but a deep respect and love for each other, and they really relied on one another. And to see Anakin pretty much exposed.
You abandoned me. You failed me.
Do you know what I've become?
I think they're both kind of in shock that this event is actually going to happen, that someone is going to have to walk away dead, and neither one of them want that, I think, deep down, even Anakin.
I won't leave you. Not this time.
The fight itself was pretty good, but the dialogue was just absolutely stellar, and it really reflected on how much these two have leaned on each other for so long.
Then you will die.
And at the very last second, Ezra and Kanan get away, and the temple explodes. Of course, Ezra has the Sith holocron, and Darth Maul gets away. But once the temple explodes, we don't really know what happened to Ahsoka. I have to assume that she lived, because you see Darth Vader limping away, really, really epic music, some Weird Al kind of watching him as he limps away from the battle scene. But then it starts zooming into the temple doors. We see, I think, Ahsoka walking back into the temple, maybe kneeling down. That could be her kneeling in defeat, kneeling in death, or simply just accepting what had just happened, and we might see even more of her later on in the series. But it was very emotional to finally see some form of clarity, some form of closure in these two's relationship, and understanding their emotions when they finally find out about each other. I don't know if Anakin knew that Ahsoka was still alive, but Ahsoka definitely didn't know Anakin was alive. And it was heartbreaking to see someone that she cared about so much turn into a monster. So anyway, guys, that is season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. Very, very epic Act 2 style emotion storytelling. And season 3, I think, is going to be in the same style as Return of the Jedi. Very action-packed. They're going to be tying a lot of bows and a lot of knots and giving us clarity in a lot of different plot points. But ultimately, it's the characters that drive the show. And they're doing a really, really good job of it. Ezra is absolutely an awesome character to follow. His progression, his choices, Kanan and Hera and everybody in the show. And then a lot of the side characters as well, like Agent Callus and Zeb and even Hondo, the pirate. Like it's all a very fun company to enjoy these stories with. And I think if I were to rate out of 10 season 2 of Rebels, it would definitely be a solid 9.5. I think they executed everything near to perfection, and they really made me invest in these characters, the choices that they make and the situations that they overcome. And I'm excited to see if Rebels sooner or later draws into or ties into Rogue One a little bit. I think it'd be almost impossible not to. So let me guys know what you thought of Star Wars Rebels Season 2. Leave your comments and questions below. If there's anything that I missed that you want to cover later, just let me know. But very, very awesome, successful project by Dave Filoni and the company of Lucasfilm. So thanks you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. May the Force be with you.